senken die Kosten, erhöhen dadurch den Gewinn und sichern damit die Zukunft und das Wachstum ab. Wenn Sie wissen möchten, wie das für Ihr Hotel funktionieren kann, dann lassen Sie uns miteinander sprechen.
Hotel Partner, your revenue management partner for optimization, success, security.
Hello? Okay, so I'm gonna place this here. Yeah? Oh, you know what? Let me just ask her to take some pictures. I never take pictures. Okay. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome. My name is Nanna, Soenya, and I am from the UK, from London. I have a management consultancy that specializes in talent acquisition. I'll explain a little bit about that later. It sounds fancy, but it does a very simple thing. And it's my absolute pleasure today to guide us through a topic that, frankly, deserves more spotlight than it actually gets in our industry. We're here to delve into the topic of, and the world of succession planning and talent development. But with a twist, we're talking about not just succession planning as in the next leaders, but in all departments of the hospitality sector, the hotel sector, from the beginning. In the high-end industry, we excel at creating extraordinary experiences for our guests, curating moments that linger, in memories for a lifetime. Yet, although a lot of promotions happen organically, how often do we apply that same dedication and foresight to our internal talent management and development processes? Considering the generational shift and the change in the way the younger generation seek work, it is possible that it is time that we expand our horizons and recognize that every role within our industry is pivotal, each requiring a thoughtful plan for future transitions and growth. And this is why I am thrilled to have Esther Visser with us today. Esther's expertise and leadership in hospitality are well documented and respected, and her insights into developing and implementing succession plans at all levels of an organization are invaluable. With her perspective, we aim to illuminate the path for a more resilient, adaptable, and future-ready hospitality sector all across Europe. So today, let's challenge ourselves, think about asking us questions about succession planning as a comprehensive approach that embraces every department and every role. So without further ado, let's dive in. I'm going to ask Esther some questions, and then we're going to have a conversation about her views on comprehensive succession planning. And then if we have time, hopefully we'll take some questions at the end. Okay. Esther, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see so many people here. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Esther. I've been working in hospitality. I'm a graduate from Hotel School The Hague, which I graduated from, I think, mid-last century, somewhere around that. And I've been in hospitality roles for about 18 years, I think. And in the meantime, I also left the hospitality business to do some other roles. I worked in HR roles for the past 30 years. And I did it for several companies, from retail to development organizations, NGOs, to entertainment business. And for the last 13 years, back in hospitality. So, nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much, Esther. We're going to dive straight into the first question, and that is, this is about comprehensive succession planning. Considering the wide-ranging roles within the high-end hospitality sector, how can succession planning be effectively tailored to address the career progression needs of all employees at all levels, not just those on leadership tracks?
Wow. Well, that is a very broad question, so I try to put it into small pieces, which I always like to keep the things as simple as possible in one piece at a time. So, being in the hotels and in the departments a lot, we in our company, we identify talents by being in the hotels, basically, by being in the locations, by seeing the people, meeting the people, speaking to people. And I know that I'm on the innovation stage today, but still I think talent development and talent management is more to do with personal contact than anything. And of course, the innovation can be sought in things like systems that can be filled in to identify which person is in which position and which person is ready for the next step, which country you're in, what your next step will be, and identifying talents that way. But still, a system needs to be filled in as well with information, and the information comes from the person. So I am a very strong believer in being on the premises itself as an HR manager or HR person, and really knowing the people is the most important thing. Secondly, what I think should be in place is having good development conversations with people. You can do them at least twice a year. You can start them in your onboarding program, where you already ask people what their ambitions are for the future, as long as they are with your organization. And in these, we also use the principle that we have as less hierarchy as possible to actually get the information from the person. So you speak about your career to somebody who is the closest to you, because then you will reveal the most of the things that you would like for your future. And then this information, so we don't do what's it called, annual appraisals, like performance appraisals. We don't do those. We do development conversations twice a year. And the information that comes out of that is being fed back to the HR department, and it can be used to tailor the training house or the academy or our Leonardo development lab, as we call it. So those development conversations is the second thing that we find really important. And the other thing is, in employee surveys, twice a year, where we ask people broadly about their opinion, about learning and development, about their ambitions, and about the topics that they want to be trained on. And last but not least, what we find really important is that we advertise every internal vacancy for people to apply to, because that will always also be an expression of people telling us what they want and which direction they want to develop. So that would be 4 tools. I mean, it's such a broad question, so I can talk to you about culture and these things and recruitment and whatever. But these are the 4 main things that we use to identify talent, whereas being in the hotels, talking to people will be the most important thing.
Thank you so much for that. Now, going off of what you said about the development, the next question has specifically to do with that. Could you give us an example of what a development conversation rather than appraisal would look like in your company? How do you go about it? How do you prepare the employees for it and your team for it? And how is it considered and looked at within the team?
It is, of course, it is a form, but the form is more the tool. So it's the conversation that is the most important. And it is actually not really fancy. It is 10 to 15 questions that we ask people about their happiness in their work, their current role, the things they are missing in their current skill set, let's say. We ask them what they would like to learn and how they would like to learn it, what their best learning style is. Do they want to follow online trainings? Do they want to be attached to somebody else in another department, maybe? Do they like to do a specific tailored training program? It all depends on what the person wishes. And also, have they seen roles in the company that they admire, that they would like to do? So it's questions like that we put it in a form, basically. But a form is nothing more than a lead for the manager, just to keep, like I have a lead for my questions here, and to have the conversation. So that's the most important thing. Yeah.
Thank you. And that's really interesting, because I'm guessing that from that, you have feedback from your staff about how they feel. So my next question is, how does knowing that there's the second part of the question, how does knowing that there's a plan for their growth affect the employees' commitment and performance?
Yeah, I recognize that, because to know that there's a plan with them. I mean, wouldn't you like to work for a company that you know that they care about your talent and about your development? Everybody. So maybe, I don't know where you all are working, but which of you here, maybe you can raise hands, works for a company that has a good development plan in place? Ooh. Well, there's quite a few hands, but not as many as I would have liked to see. Because if somebody comes into our company, we already recruit people telling them to the outside world that we find internal growth and internal promotion very important. So the people that come and apply for our jobs already know that we are a company that values that highly. And if we make it known through our communication systems, our internal communication app, if we take all the leadership, people in leadership roles, and we really educate them on how important we find internal progression of people, we notice, because we measure this, that people find it really, really important.
And then can you talk about how that affects employee retention and engagement?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, succession planning is the identification and further development of talent in order to fill in future vacancies and keep the organization evolving and developing, and to reach the goals and to keep up with changes in society, either technical or environmental or cultural. And it's an ongoing rolling process, so to speak. And if such a succession planning is one of the tools in a whole variety of tools, of course, that you can use to empower and develop the workforce. And you keep people happy in their jobs this way. And if people get such attention, and if people feel that their employer cares about their careers, that is a great feeling, right? I mean, you know, I would rather work there. And we see the correlation in our decreasing turnover in the past 5 years, for instance. So we see it. We have seen it decreasing from 73% to 50% at the moment, which is not very uncommon in the hospitality industry. And you also see it in the length of stay, that people actually stay with us. It used to be below 3 years, and now it's climbed up in 5 years' time to 4.3 years, which is, well, an increase. And because the talent management is part of such a broad variety of things you can do to make people happy, let's say, you cannot really pinpoint that it's only the cause of talent management that raises this figure. But still, I'm a firm believer, if you have good talent and development programs in place, your people will stay with you for a longer time. And we have seen it, that people that have been trained by us and took part in our talent programs, they stay longer. The general managers of all our hotels, for instance, 90% of them, they come from our own breed, let's say. They were trained from being a trainee to being a general manager now, which is just great. It just affects the commitment of people really positively, because they feel the attention for their development. Which gives them more perspective in terms of progress and job responsibility, but also in income and personal growth, and in leadership also, if that is their ambition. And they feel inspired, and they feel cared for, and they feel valued. And in employee surveys, we measure this, obviously. So, right. Does this
great.
still answer your
Yeah,
question?
It definitely does.
Okay.
Yeah, so when it comes to all of that, let's just go to some of the challenges. What are some of the challenges in implementing a succession plan that encompasses all employees? We were talking about this earlier, because sometimes not all employees want to have a succession plan. That's one of the challenges. And how to ensure that every team member feels like they have a clear path in the department they're in, or even in the path they want to go.
Yeah. Well, one example, there are many challenges, of course, in carrying out a good talent management strategy. And you also have to accept that you cannot do everything, and you cannot please everyone. I now work for a business unit of our company which has 900 staff. if I would have 900 people in the organization having a personal development plan that I need to do something with like every week, I would go mad. So you always have to accept that there are certain things you cannot do. But people that do not want to develop in a certain direction, but if they're just entering your company being really content with the job that they have, and they want to do this for 2 or 3 years, there's no need to pull them in a certain direction that they don't want to go. And then there's other things you can offer these people to still feel heard and seen, and they can develop maybe broadly instead of going up all the time. So that's fine if it is like that. So we should also accept that that is also a good thing. In our leadership talent programs that we run at Leonardo hotels, they are for a maximum of 10 people per class, and we have 3 classes. So sometimes we have 12 or 15 in one class at the max. So the special talent leadership programs, which is one of the programs that we host, we have more programs, but for the leadership teams, we have a succession program, and there's only 30 people that can take part in this. So we do like a very strict selection procedure, and we also have to disappoint people, because we usually have about 60, 70, 80 people actually applying for it, and we can only place about 35. So you always have to take into account that you always also have to disappoint people. But then what we then do as an alternative is that we do a special, an alternative personal development plan for those people who were not successful to get into the talent programs. And what we see is if we do that, then they will stay and they will try again next year. So that is one thing that is a challenge, that you also need to be prepared to disappoint people. Then there is obviously the thing about budget. Budget is always a thing. Beforehand, you need to establish with your board of directors maybe, or with the person that is in charge. Because I believe that the way you look at talent management and the strategy you have should start with the managing directors or the boards or whatever what the structure is in your company. But it should be the responsibility of the management, and the commitment of the management should be there. So if you have a company that really highly values that, you should get the management on board and the budget cleared before you start developing things, because then you know how much you can actually spend. I mean, I am quite sort of simple in that way, you know. It's not really really difficult to do, but the other challenge, once you have the budget and you know how much money you have to actually do things with, then you need to know what kind of content do I need? What kind of programs do I need? And the content should be an excellent fit to what the people actually want. And it should also be supportive to the goals that you want to reach in your company. And then there's also like things like the 21st century skills that you would like to sort of aim for. So the content should be a good fit. So we have content, we have budget, and we have disappointing people that you have to be prepared for. And then another challenge is communication, because you can make a great academy, but if you don't communicate it well, why it is there, what it consists of, how people can actually enter, how they can apply for a training. The managers need to be on board. So there is a lot of communication necessary in order to make it work. So that is a very challenging thing as well that we experience every day. And then there is an operational challenge, because we all know, if we all work in hospitality, we know that low season, where we have low occupancy and maybe too many staff, we have a lot of time to train people. But then again, we don't have the money to spend the hours, right? Because it's low season. And if it's high season, we have high occupancies, and we need all the staff we can get to be in the hotels serving our guests, and there is no time to train them. So that's always, you know, a thing that we need to deal with and find our ways through it, to see how we can deal with it. And there is ways, you know, because if there's people, then you can train them maybe on the work floor during their work. You can do online trainings. You can make the trainings really short and quick and concise, so that, you know, it doesn't take too many hours. You can be creative in that. The other thing that is a challenge is that we should never force anyone to go to a training session, because that will never be successful. I mean, you probably all know this, but it is still visible if I am anywhere in a training session that you still see people that sit there and say, you know, my boss made me come here. So, and that's not effective. Never. It never is. But if the person chooses themselves to do the training, it will always be effective. So we have to accept and embrace also imperfections sometimes, and always evaluate the framework that you have developed. So don't put it out there and leave it there for 3 years, but evaluate it every quarter. What we do is we open up training programs for every quarter of the year, and then we evaluate every training afterwards from the training company, because we have external companies also doing training sessions, but also internal trainers in place in the company. And we evaluate the framework very, very regularly, and we adapt it every time. Because the world is adapting really quickly, so we also need to adapt the training sessions really quickly. I can give you an example. We have a training where we deal with reviews on the internet. And it is a training given by a company, like in a training session. So you really practice with typing reviews and reading reviews. But now we introduced a robot, actually, to do the reviews. So now the training is out of date, all of a sudden. So now we are sort of reviewing the training. And next quarter, we have reviewed the training, and the training is different. So it is all quite, it moves a lot. So I hope, you know, so there's disappoint people, budgeting, communication, operational, the content. To get homogeneous groups is also very important, because if you put open a training session, then everybody will try to get into the session, but not everybody is of the same, has the same skills, of the same level of skills, has the same sort of best way that the person learns the quickest. So it's always difficult to get homogeneous groups. And then the evaluation of it. So those are the main. It's a lot of actually practical challenges, but still, it is possible to have a good academy in place. Yeah.
That's very, very insightful. Now, going a little on topic but off topic, we were talking before about the whole idea, not the idea, but the sector of getting staff into developing staff, training staff. Now, Esther and her company do a lot of internal promotion, but I want to touch on the subject of how do you attract new people? What are the things that you guys put in place to attract new people to your company? For instance, when I work with clients, I help clients attract new staff. When I work with clients, one of the things that I focus on building, because sometimes they don't have it, is a company profile that is tailored to the candidate. So the candidate gets a complete job pack about the company, about why the company exists, who did it, who started, and it really helps when it comes to people buying into the vision. Sometimes companies think that just writing a job description with a whole list of benefits and a salary is going to be the way to draw people in. And the way that people are looking for work now, they want to be inspired by something. So that's one of the things that I use. Esther, what do you guys do when it comes to attracting new talent? What are the things that you guys put in place to make sure that you are sort of transmitting the vision of Leonardo hotels and exactly what you're all about, so you get the right people in?
It's a very good question, and I think everybody is, trying to get new talent in. And we were talking to each other before, because we got this insight during the COVID period, actually, that we find it so important, and we were also forced during the COVID period to concentrate only on the people that we had on board already. So that gave us the insight that we thought, if we care really well for the people that we have, and that we do a lot about talent development and internal promotion, then at least we keep the people that we have. So when we saw that COVID was over and the occupancies were going through the roof again, but there was no staff available in the market, then we thought we might as well concentrate everything we have on the people that we have inboard on board, instead of that we concentrate on trying to find new people, because there weren't any. So that was really, really difficult time. And still, we have a very low labor market at the moment. There's not many people available. But of course, we also work on our employer brand. Leonardo Hotels is not very well known in the market yet, but it's getting there and getting better and better. Although it's a very large hotel chain with 270 properties, but not as many yet in the Benelux. So we have to work on our brand and the knowledge that people have about our brand. So of course we are doing things like employer branding and communicating our values and our culture. But one of the main things that we want to get out there to attract new people with is the fact that we do so many things for people once you're here. So that is what we try to communicate. And of course, we recruit through social media and through all the things that you must know that you can use for recruitment. But the thing we also do is that we have the referral program also in place, and we do a lot of things there as well. So we try our staff to recruit the new staff, basically, to ask their family and friends, their neighbors, whatever, to ask them from LinkedIn to come and work for us. And we see that is one of the good working methods to actually get new people in. So
interesting. Just want to touch again on when you guys the benefits and the perks that are offered. And in London, for instance, there are a lot of, cycle to work scheme and well-being scheme and all of those things. What do you think is really valuable for candidates? Because sometimes there's a long list of things, and some candidates can't make use of that. So in your experience, what do you think are the valuable things? Rather than a whole long list of things, would you say there are 2 or 3 things that I think these are the things that really help attract new talent?
Yeah, it depends on, of course, the things you can actually do, the budget that you actually have. And if you ask people, why do you work for a certain company, then usually they will say things like, I like the atmosphere, I like my colleagues, I like the drinks that we have every end of the month, or things like that. And I think it is mainly the things like that, the things that the company can offer that gives the people attention, so that they are seen in the company. So I think actually the development that you can go through and the trainings that you can do is one of the very important things, next to, of course, that there should be like a decent salary and there should be like decent working conditions. Those are the most important things, and also a good special occasion policy, let's say. If there's a special thing going on in the life of one of your employees, then you need to celebrate that, or you need to recognize that, or you have to give them attention for that, so that they feel seen and heard. I think that's one of the main good things. Yeah.
That's really insightful. Well, we have almost come to the end of our speech to you, and we would love to open it up for questions if you guys have any, or comments or thoughts that you want to share as well. Maybe we've missed something out that you feel is important to share. Betty is over there with a mic if anybody wants to add something, so we can all, learn together in terms of this, or ask us or Esther questions. We are here. Please don't all raise your hands at once.
Not too many hands. Maybe we should ask people questions, right?
Yeah.
Go for it. Thanks for the chat. When you explained that when people can't get promoted, but they're able to grow in a certain way, were you mentioning that they can take on a different role, like a bartender becoming an F&B, or I'm just trying to understand that. Maybe you can elaborate.
Definitely. Yes, definitely. It is. Sorry, I have to stand up sometimes and move around a little bit. Of course, a bartender can be promoted to the next role and in the end become the director of food and beverage, for instance. The most important thing is, what does the person need to go there? So it's the conversations between maybe the manager of that person or the supervisor of that person to identify what the person needs. And the HR department can help you, of course, in applying the right techniques or systems to find that out. But it is definitely possible. Yes, it's actually quite easily possible. Does that answer your question? Okay. All right. Anyone else? Yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
The question is how to go to the next level in the environment that sometimes you feel that the HR maybe doesn't give enough attention to you, and how to be not look like too ambitious also to the colleagues, because sometimes I'm afraid that am I too much ambitious, or should I put a break? I mean, like stop a bit or go back up. Sometimes the uneasy feeling, because you are hungry to develop yourself.
Yeah.
But perhaps I don't know, is it only our feeling or is it the real thing? But what is the wise and the smart way to shine without, getting problems, let's say?
Oh, I really love your question. It's such a good question, because it all depends on the culture that is in place in the company, and also the culture that we come from ourselves. There's cultures out there. I was talking to you about that as well, right? That in some cultures, or maybe even in the difference between men and women, it is sometimes really easy to say, I am really good at something, but in other cultures, it's not very common to do that and to put the attention on yourself. But if you have an ambition and you don't feel supported by the HR department, then I would think the HR department is not necessarily the person that is there that should get you further. That is always more within you. They can help you to get further. But if they don't, well, I'm sorry that, come and talk to me and maybe you can work somewhere else. But still, to talk about your ambition to your supervisor or your colleague maybe, that is always a good thing. And maybe we have to talk about this, that I can give you the best advice to go about that, because I don't know your organization, of course. But it's never wrong if you work in the Netherlands, I think, to tell people about your ambition. And it does not need to be your boss, but maybe somebody that is a little bit closer to you than, the highest boss. And just tell people, maybe in short, in small steps, about your ambition. Because if you tell people, then it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you keep it to yourself and think, I don't think I should do it because they might not like me, then it will not happen, because nobody will know. It can only happen for you if you let people know. And what the best way is to let people know, I'm not sure in your circumstances. But I would definitely share it and maybe, I don't know if you have talked to HR about it already, but if you haven't, you might try that, and maybe they will surprise you.
Can I just add something to that? Sometimes working for a company where you're not sure whether or not they see you, I think the onus is on you to understand the vision behind the company. You know, because if you believe you are doing well and you're doing everything within that, but nobody is seeing you, it's important for you to really research and understand, does this company have a track record of doing that? Or is it just that there's a blind spot? You know, is it just that there's a blind spot? And as Esther said, maybe you need to speak to the right people, but maybe it's just that the company has a culture of not seeing people. So then you need to decide whether or not that's the place for you to be. You know, because sometimes some companies you can go only a certain way to a certain step, and there is some blockage. And that's when you need to wonder or start looking and seeing where is the best place for me. Sometimes it's like that.
One more?
Any more
Okay.
questions?
We have time for one more. We were just... Oh, there's one here. Gentleman in the front.
Hey, thanks. You talked about in the beginning about there's people who have talent and they want to develop inside the company, but there's also just sometimes people who are content in the position they have.
Yeah.
But you still want to kind of, I think you said it like you want to develop them more in a horizontal way. Mm-hmm. Can you name a specific example of what that might be?
Yes, definitely. It could be that the person is interested, maybe works in F&B, let's say, but is also interested to learn some more about the front office. And then why should we not give the person the opportunity to learn a bit about the front office? And it can be as easy as maybe do an online training session for half an hour about specific front office tasks. And there is also, we have internal trainers in place, like maybe in the finance department. So you can start by maybe giving people more insight of the jobs of others. Or what we also do, if we have a certain project to implement a certain new system or a new program or whatever, it can be small or large, that you can give that person a certain responsibility out of their normal responsibilities. And that usually works also really well, because the person gets a small extra task, will not be that much, but still the person feels seen and can develop a bit more. But it all depends on if the person wants it. And, and if the person doesn't do the regular job well, that's another discussion. If the person does the regular job well, but has no ambition to do something else, it's fine. It is great. Stay and do that for another 10 years. Yeah. Okay.
Do we have time for one more question? Yes, we do. I know somebody wants to ask a question.
Yes.
Oh, 2 questions.
Oh, there's 2 even. Oh, sorry.
Talking about, because you talked about company culture, but you're based in a lot of countries actually. How do you take into account different country cultures, and can you apply the same strategy everywhere?
I would say no, we cannot apply the same strategy everywhere. And we do run talent programs everywhere. I am responsible for the Benelux, so that's not that many countries. But my colleague, who's responsible for Central Europe, is responsible for 9 countries. So that's a whole different ballgame, where if you run Germany and Hungary and Poland and Italy, that is totally different in terms of how people work, how people learn, how they tell somebody about their ambition. That is all different in the culture. So you cannot have the same strategy. But I think the strategy of having a lot of attention for people and being a company that wants to have high retention rates and focus on promotion from within, I think that strategy can be applied everywhere, but you fill it in a different way. Is that a bit more? sort of the answer that you were looking for?
Thank you for a great talk. Last year, I did some research into the leadership roles in the hotel industry.
Yes.
And what I found was that among women and people of color, male or female, there was a lot higher desire to progress within their career, and yet that's not happening. When you look at the top 10, 20 even, top hotel brands in the world, the C-suite jobs are dominated by one demographic.
Which jobs? Sorry.
The C-suites,
right.
all executive jobs.
Okay, yeah.
So I wonder, okay, so you're a person of color or you're a woman and you are very ambitious, and yet you see people getting promoted over you all the time. You can't just keep bouncing from one place to the next, because that diminishes your career progression. So I wonder if you have any views on that, on any thoughts to share with us on that one?
I have views and thoughts, yeah, but you do as well, right?
Yes. Being a woman and a person of color, just in case you didn't know. I think it's a difficult place to navigate. And what I have learned is that even within this industry, it is very important to find people who sponsor you. When I say sponsor, it's people who speak of you when you're not there. People, when they're making decisions about who to raise up, can speak for you. And a lot of women of color, a lot of people don't yet know that that is a really important thing. Sometimes we think that just our merit and just the fact that we're working really hard is going to get us there. And in many other sectors, and actually in all of the sectors, you have sponsors, you have mentors that help you get to the next stage. And when it comes to C-suite level, that is crucial in any sector. It's always good. I always advise, please find people within, if you're working in a large company, please, maybe not your direct managers are there to help you, but research who else in the company is championing these things and who can help you, because that's the only way. Why? Not because people don't want to hire you, but it's a blind spot. We're working on it, you know? EDI, we're working on it. It's a blind spot. So to combat that blind spot, it is so important to surround yourself, not be an island. Surround yourself with people that champion you, that sponsor you, that help you be seen where you cannot be seen. Yeah.
It is work in progress for many organizations, and also for us at Leonardo Hotels. And it is something that we are seeing now because of the high immigration rates. I love them. I mean, let the people come in and work for us, because there aren't any others. So please, you know, it is great. But therefore, we see so much more diversity in our companies. And we need to be prepared for that as well. And it also links a bit to your question about how do you go about with different cultures. You know, Portuguese people, they react to being praised for their jobs in a totally different way than somebody from Thailand or something. So it is, you know, you need to be aware of that. And what we are doing now as Leonardo Hotels, we are actually joining the European Diversity Charter from the EU. And we have 3 goals in there that we are going to strive for in the future. And the one thing that we are going to start very soon, after we have signed it in the European Commission, is that we are going to train everybody in a leadership role on having conversations with people with the excluding the unconscious bias. Yeah, because that's a very important thing, because we all have certain biases and perspectives in our head. And that's the first thing that we're going to do. And this way we want to show that we at least are willing to give everybody a fair chance. So, but there is a lot to learn there. Yeah, thanks for your question.
Okay, we've come to the end of everything. Thank you so much for sticking with us and listening to us. If you want to stay and have a chat with us, we are here. But yes, thank you for having us, and enjoy the rest of your time in the IHA.
Thank you.